Hi everyone. So I am super excited today because I've got Tony Wrighton here with me, and I can say loads about him. So he is an author of some best-selling books on iTunes. He's got a not best-selling, but top charts.
Yeah, let's just say best-selling's fine. Yeah.
Best-selling, podcast called Zestology. He has also got what most men would probably say is the dream job. Working for Sky Sports. So, Tony, firstly, I want to say thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It's great to be on.
I'm super excited to be talking to you.
We're going to talk about you for the next half hour, yeah?
Oh, absolutely. Definitely. That much more interesting. So firstly, maybe you should do a better job of telling us about what you do. Because you do so much. And as I said a second to you just before we started this, I think one of the things that I find fascinating about you is the fact that you've got this really nice balance going on between your own stuff that you're passionate about, but also a career that you're passionate about. And to have both working so well is not heard of that often, is it?
Oh, that's very nice of you to say. And I do strive for balance. So I work on Sky. I worked in radio for years, and my boss was your husband, which was great. And I absolutely loved working with Andy, and it was a real break for me actually working with Andy. And it's funny because just before we started, we were talking about how when you start out doing things, you're not very good and you kind of get better quite quickly. And it was just making me think of my first day on the radio station in Manchester when Andy and I were working together. And I had to interview Richard Ashcroft of the Verve, but then left the Verve and was solo. Yeah. And I guess I was kind of Andy's big new signing. And I think I did such a cringe job of interviewing Richard Ashcroft. I seem to remember it was the most worthy interview I've ever done. And it was kind of, 7 or 8 minute chunks of kind of real kind of worthy. So tell me a bit more about the music. And Andy must have been thinking, what have I done here? But hopefully I got slightly better over the years that I worked with Andy, and I loved that. And then I moved into TV, and now I've been at Sky for almost 10 years.
Wow, has it been 10 years already?
Yeah, 9.5 years.
That's amazing. That is
crazy. Yeah.
So one of the things, because I didn't really know about NLP until I heard about it from you.
Yeah.
And I heard about it in lots of different ways. So NLP, for anyone who doesn't know, stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. But one of the first things that I noticed is Andy would come home and say that you were learning NLP and you were starting to use it kind of in your show on the radio. And as I listened, because I loved listening to your show, it was one of the few that I did listen to.
One of the few.
I noticed a really big difference, and I found that fascinating. And that was probably one of the first things that got me hooked and got me really interested in NLP. What was it like right back then, which must have been over 10 years ago?
Yeah.
That first sparked your interest in NLP?
I guess like a few things. Firstly, I kind of felt like I was going through a stage where I wasn't quite as happy as I could have been. And I just kind of, started to explore my own personal development. And I'd never done that before. I was kind of, probably 30 and just sailed through up until then. And then also I was a radio presenter, and NLP stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. So there's a lot of language involved. And so once I kind of looked into it, I started to think, tell you what, I've actually got the perfect place to try this stuff out. And that is on my show. And I don't know how much I told the boss, your husband, about what I was using on the show at first. I do actually remember asking him, I said, would I be able to get 20 days off to do this NLP course over the next 6 months? And he said, you're having a laugh, aren't you? I think he was quite reluctant to give me the time off. And I'm so glad that he did, because it's kind of changed my direction and therefore my life to a certain extent as well. So I started using the skills of NLP on my show. And with the kind of proviso that I would try and encourage people to listen for longer, feel better about listening, and maybe get some new listeners in as well. Because they say when you learn NLP, they say always use your skills for good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, always use your skills for good. And I mean, my listening figures went up a lot when I started doing that on the show. In fact, for quite a long time, in fact, I think for most of the time I was at Century FM, I had more listeners than The Breakfast Show. Yeah, which was a bit crazy and quite unusual in the world of radio. Normally, Breakfast has the most amount of listeners and then Drive Time. And I was on the Drive Time show and I had more listeners than Breakfast. It was kind of weird, you know. And I was using, it was really NLP 101 that I was using, but just some simple linguistic tweaks to make myself more descriptive and to help people connect with what I was doing a little bit more. And hopefully not being really obvious and quite lame at the same time. No,
and I remember kind of listening to your journey as you were learning it and using it.
God, it was probably so obvious.
It wasn't, but I was listening out because we'd had conversations about it and Andrew would come home and tell me about it and I'd started looking into NLP. Just because there might be people on here who are going, what are they talking about? What is neuro-linguistic programming?
Yeah.
How would you explain it in a nutshell?
How would I explain neuro-linguistic programming itself?
Yeah.
I'd say it's a study of how people do things well, how you communicate better with yourself and other people, and also how you can, from a personal perspective, how you can manage your moods.
Absolutely.
So I think that's like, basically, it's a really bad name. It was invented in the 70s in California. And that was just the point when computers were kind of getting big. And so they were like, right, we've got to have something with, something kind of computer language in the title. I think that's why they called it neuro-linguistic programming. I often say when I'm kind of talking about NLP now that if it was invented now, they might call it neuro-hacking or even mind hacking a little bit, just kind of hacking into the way that we operate and doing a slightly better job of it. And I think that describes it a little bit better. But we're stuck with NLP, so there we go.
I like that. I was about to ask you, actually. I was about to say, what would you call it? If you were giving it, you'd call it
maybe neuro-hacking. Yeah. I think just like the word hacking is very on point at the moment. And people like the idea of shortcuts to success or better health or communication skills or whatever it might be. And I think that is kind of, my books were all kind of... all the skills in my books were like distilling NLP into skills that take 1 minute or less. And so I guess that is kind of hacking to a certain extent as well.
So I've got one of your books here. So
did you actually buy that?
No, you sent this to me.
Oh, good. Thank goodness. I was feeling that. Oh, good. Excellent.
I love this book. And I knew exactly where it was before I got it earlier. So this is one of your books, Persuade in a Minute.
Yeah.
And then you've got two others, right? Is it
Confidence in a Minute, Relax in a Minute, and Persuading.
Sleep, Relax in a Minute, yeah.
Yeah.
And so where can people buy some? If they want one of these, where can they get them from?
Just get them on Amazon. Just search for my name or the title of the book and you'll find it.
Because I love this book. Like, just one of the very simple things that I remember that when I first read it was the little experiment with, when you, like in a restaurant or something and like just touching someone to
you've got to be that experiment, by the way, was in a cafe in the south of France, and I mean, it's not really NLP, but I do like this experiment. And they looked at customers when they came in, and they asked the waiters and waitresses to do one small action when they first came in, not when they brought them the bill, but when they first came in, and that was to touch them lightly on the arm. And then they found that the customers that were touched lightly on the arm, their tips increased by, I can't remember, 15% or 20%. Amazing. But you have to be sure you touch them in the right place, Claire.
Oh dear, is there a secret?
No, it's on the arm. Don't touch them in an inappropriate place.
No, that's true.
Your tips aren't going to increase so much. But amazing, isn't it, that they've tried the same experiment where people walk into a shop and they're more likely to buy. And so, the ways that we communicate with each other at an unconscious level, sometimes we don't really think about unconscious communication. But when we do, it can be quite exciting and quite interesting as well.
Absolutely. And that, by the way, is one that I use when I go to networking meetings.
Do you?
I do. I touch people on the arm, especially if they're just a little tiny touch. And I feel like it does actually make a difference. It's crazy, but I do feel like it makes a difference.
Yeah, I do as well, actually. I think like us Brits aren't particularly touchy-feely. So I think you have to be careful not to invade someone's personal space.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think other cultures are, much more comfortable with touch in general. I mean, if you go on holiday to Italy, you'll often see men walking down the street arm in arm. They're not in a relationship. They're just like, it's just companionship.
Yeah.
I don't do that with my mates in London. It's just not the way we grew up. You know what I mean?
It is totally different, isn't it?
Yeah.
So of those 3 books that you've written, have you got a favourite one?
Probably that one that you just held up, Persuade in a Minute, because it was the 3rd one that I wrote. So, in the same way that when I interviewed Richard Ashcroft on the first day at Century FM and it was cringe, and I hopefully got better over time, I feel like with the 3 books, I got better over time as well.
Yeah, that's cool. And so I remember you going off to Australia to write these books.
That was the 3rd one. Yeah. I left Sky for a while.
Yeah.
And I was like, I could just do this from anywhere. Just go and, sit by the beach and write a book. And I loved that. And actually, I missed the job of working at Sky. I missed the adrenaline buzz because, it's pretty full on when you're there. And I also missed the companionship, the life of a writer, and the irony of writing about, personal development, especially communication skills, is I was spending large parts of the day not communicating with people because I was sitting in a coffee shop on my own writing a book. So the lovely people at Sky Sports were good enough to offer me a job when I came back. So it worked out perfectly.
That is perfect.
Yeah.
I do love the fact that, like, so many people crave and wish for that chance to be able to just go away and write or do art or do something that they love to do or feel passionate about doing. And like when I look back to you just doing that, and I remember we were living in New Zealand at the time, and I was like, wow, Tony's just like upped and gone and he's writing. Yeah. And it was like, that is so brave. Like,
yeah.
Looking back, what kind of gave you, what shifted and you were like, yes, I'm just doing it?
I think I felt like there was just a bit of a restlessness and a desire to try new things. And I knew with the from a money perspective, that wasn't really an issue because the other books and the audio books and the app was making enough money that I could do it. So I wanted to try it. I wanted to give it a go. It's funny because actually what happened was I spent a few months away and I enjoyed it, and I came back here and I realized how much I loved London, and I'd missed London as well, and my family and friends, and you can't put a price on that. And you guys know, having lived in New Zealand and having lived in this country as well, that when you miss your family and friends, that can be quite hard. Sometimes I think I want to do it again. and I probably will at some point. This concept of digital nomads I love, actually, which is the more, 20 years ago, you could not move anywhere in the world and set up a business with a high-speed internet connection because it didn't exist. Yeah. But now you can, and that's just so awesome, isn't it? And especially in terms of podcasting, which is a lot more of what I'm doing now, I could just travel around and do that. Absolutely. You don't even need a visa to do it, you can just do it. And so obviously at the moment I'm very comfortable, I'm very happy working with Sky, and as you said, it is a bit of a dream job, but that flexibility is there at some point. And I do like having more than one string to my bow, and I think you find a lot of people now, they'll have the job which pays the bills, and then they'll have something on the side which is a bit of a passion. Absolutely. And that's a great way to do it, isn't it?
I think it is totally, because then you've got the security, haven't you? You've got the security in the thing that and it means that it can be a passion without it turning into a chore. Yeah, because that's what I've seen sometimes with people. When people come for coaching, sometimes it was a passion and they've lost their passion in it because they start earning money in it. So it's become stressful instead. And so actually being able to pull back into that place where you're excited and passionate and feel alive doing it, like, that's what's important.
Yeah, because I think that's the same the world over with any job. Even, you're right in saying that Sky is a dream job and I love it. But having spent almost 10 years there and worked on Saturday nights, which is obviously the day of football. Yeah. And on a Saturday night, I'll probably see like 200 goals 4 or 5 times in a row. So like 800 to 1,000 goals. And believe me, when you've watched Chesterfield versus Rochdale, you know, over the course of 10 years, it just kind of all blurs into one a little bit. But I do still love the job. But I'm just saying, you know, you get used to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the same with traveling. Like you're saying, you know, it's only when you leave the country that you appreciate how much you've got here and how much you enjoy it, and your family and your friends, and you miss them. And it's quite often only when you see the other side of the coin that you what you've got on the other side.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So after the books, you then along the line started up your podcast.
Yeah.
Zestology. How long was it between the books and Zestology starting?
Well, quite a while actually. You know the reason behind Zestology, don't you? Or I mean, you might, but yeah. I went on holiday to the Philippines a few years ago, and I got very ill. And I woke up one day and I had, you know, numb patches on my face, and I felt super tired and had a rash on my leg, and it was pretty horrendous. And came home, and the doctors said, the good news is we know you've got, or rather you've had some kind of virus. And I was like, great, what was it? And they said, we don't really know. The modern medicine means that, you know, there's a lot of viruses out there. They still don't really know what they are and where they, you know, and how they occur and how you recover from them. And I ended up spending 3 months off work in bed. And it was one of the biggest challenges of my life, actually, because I didn't know if I'd get back to full fitness. And I think I was kind of stuck in, my sympathetic nervous system was on high, and I was just like super adrenalized and consulting Dr. Google 12 hours a day to try and figure out the solution.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to relax about it, and I wasn't able to get better. I didn't know if I'd ever go back to work, and Sky were fantastic, and they kept my job open. They just said, don't worry, you know, you take as long as you need, which was incredible, actually. Yeah. But at that, one of those kind of dark moments, I thought of the name Zestology, and then I thought, well, it'd be great to, you know, explore some of these solutions of how people get well and live with energy, zest and energy in particular. Also, because I'd spent a lot of time on Google, and I realized there's so many people, other people out there in kind of two separate camps. There's a lot of people out there who have unexplained illnesses that truly impact their day-to-day lives. They can't go to work, they feel super tired, they can't exercise in the way that they want to, and they can't fulfill their lives. Yeah. And then there's other people who have an unexplained lack of energy, and they just feel sluggish and they can't work out why, or they want to feel more motivated. So that was why I decided to do the podcast. And I must say it's been very fulfilling for me, because it kind of combines all the things that I like doing. And also I feel like it is of service to a lot of people as well. So that's from a selfish perspective. I love it, and it's great fun, and I get to connect with incredible people. And I know from the feedback that I get in that people find it useful as well. So it's a win-win. Yeah,
absolutely. And so on that journey of the podcast, you've been able to learn from all these people you've been talking.
I know. Yeah, it's awesome, isn't it? Yeah.
Implementing it yourself.
Yeah.
So would you say, do you feel a lot healthier, like from obviously once you got over that illness, which was really scary actually at the time.
Yeah.
And you thought of Zestology, and you started working on this concept for the podcast, and then started implementing these things in your life.
Yeah.
Like how has that impacted how you feel now?
I mean, I feel great. And yet, you know, it's still a work in progress. I think two things happened. Firstly, I had a virus, and it was hard to fight back from. And, you know, little things have changed permanently now. Like I eat differently. Yeah. I look after my health and energy levels much, much more carefully. Tomorrow I'm off to the final of the Euros, which I'm really excited about in Paris. And, you know, I'm just conscious that today I'm just going to chill a little bit, because it's like a super early start. Tomorrow it's going to be lots of work, you know. So I kind of look after myself more. Yeah. But in general, I feel very healthy, and I feel much better informed. And it's funny, because I thought I was well informed before. But
we don't know what we don't know. That's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. That's so true. Yeah. The NLP didn't help that much.
Right.
And I think the NLP skills are massively helpful for achieving achievement, motivation, goal setting, and even getting over kind of trauma and stuff from the past.
Yeah.
And yet I felt like I needed something a little bit more emotion based in terms of like, because I was kind of feeling so emotional about the fact that I kind of, couldn't go to work and that kind of thing. So NLP did help, but it took a lot of other things and other ideas and other theories to kind of get me really back to full fitness.
So what were, just because I'm totally intrigued, what were some of those other things that you found along the way that were just...
Well, why are all these modes of kind of therapeutic intervention 3 letters long? I don't know, because I know we've talked about NLP, and then I kind of got into EFT, which is tapping, and that was great. I mean, that was actually probably the biggest thing for me that just massively helped. For people who don't know, EFT is tapping, and the idea is that acupuncture has been around for centuries, thousands of years, in fact. And EFT is based on tapping the points on the body that are the closest acupuncture points to the skin. So you don't even need to stick a needle in. You can just tap. And I'm just tapping on a couple of the areas now. And when you start to tap and connect with the emotion that you're feeling, you can start to release it. I was going to say neutralize it, but I don't think that's the right word, and I don't like that word. But kind of release it, connect with it, and accept it. So that was kind of super cool.
Yeah.
And I still do that now. And I think that it often helps people with fatigue related stuff as well.
That's interesting.
Because when there's a physical symptom, when you look beyond the physical symptom to why you're feeling it, to why it's happening, that often might be something in the mind. And so it's kind of worth looking into that, and it certainly was for me, I think. I'm totally with you on that. I think that's the case for more cases than people realize. Definitely. I read some stat about 80% of everything that people go to the doctor about in this country is down to just them kind of emotions or something in the mind or some kind of issue that could be sorted with a different mindset, as opposed to a physical. Well, it is manifesting as physical.
Yes, exactly.
Anyway, so that's been like, it's been awesome kind of looking into it all, and speaking to like experts in diet and nutrition and sports psychology and film directors and people who invented bulletproof coffee or written best-selling books. It's been a great journey.
And that must have been absolutely amazing, getting to speak to so many people and connect with so many people on that journey.
And now I'm excited to watch more of your videos as well, because you're doing the same thing, aren't you?
Absolutely. This is the start of things to come. So what would you say the most surprising thing is that you've learned while you've been doing these Zestology podcasts and things? The most
surprising thing? That is, I mean, in terms of diet, we spoke before about how I thought I probably was in the top 5% of people in terms of dietary knowledge, or I thought I was anyway. I knew nothing. And I feel like I was eating, kind of low fat, high carb and high sugar. And I thought that was good for me.
Right.
And I've kind of flipped that now. And that's been great. And a lot of the experts that I speak to, I'm certainly not an expert in nutrition. And so I'm happy to not take it face value, but speak to the experts and then make my own mind up about it. But a lot of the people that I speak to emphasize the importance of a high fat, low sugar diet. Obviously that flies in the face of all the research and everything that we were told 20 years or so. But even over the last couple of years, the medical authorities in this country and in America have started to change their advice on butter, for example, and coconut oil, and saying, oh, well, maybe you can have a bit of it after all, and maybe it might be all right. So kind of looking into that. And then, just one more thing on that. Don't use sweeteners. Like, I think I thought if I was having a Diet Coke, that was fine because there's no sugar in it.
Yeah.
I feel like those sweeteners, it's not natural. It's genuinely not natural to put aspartame or wherever it might be in your body. So try and cut that out if you can, because I think your body gets a bit confused when you stick it in there.
Yeah. I think one of the big things when people are starting to look into their health and trying to make better choices, I think it can be just so confusing because there is so much conflicting information, isn't there? There's so much out there, and this person says this, and this person says this, and I know from my point of view, sometimes I look at it, I'm like, oh, what next?
Yeah.
How do you deal with that? How do you pick out what sounds right for you and what?
Well, I tell you, I've got a cast iron way of working out what does work and what doesn't, and everyone can do this, and it's good fun. But I think perhaps I enjoy it more than most because I'm a bit of a geek. And that is tracking, so you can track your health and well-being. And increasingly devices are coming on the market, like this one that I'm wearing at the moment. It's like a Jawbone, and that'll track things like sleep and exercise and steps, which is actually very helpful. Yeah, but you can track a lot more than that.
Right.
Get a spreadsheet and start working out day to day, or there's loads of apps that you can do it on. I use an app called Health Mapper, I think. Yeah, Health Mapper. That's a good way to track, and it draws you pretty little graphs and things like that. Okay. And you can track things like, okay, what supplements did I take on a certain day? How much exercise did I do? How long did I sleep? Did I meditate? And then you can track subjective things like, out of 10, what were my energy levels? Out of 10, how was my health?
Yeah.
And once you start to do that, the amazing thing is that you start to kind of build up your own data on what works and what doesn't work. And I've done that I've been tracking various things for kind of well over a year. And it's fascinating, the results. I mean, one of the things that worked brilliantly for me, and it might not work well for you, but in terms of switching off and getting away from technology, I find that technology is designed to distract us as much as possible. Facebook is so good because it's so addictive, because that's how they make more money. The longer they can keep you on the site, the better they're doing their job. But I'm not sure the better it is for our lives. If we spend 24 hours a day on Facebook, they'd be delighted. But I'm not sure that's great for us. So based on the theory that I feel like most of the things that I enjoy most in life don't involve screens, I started to switch off all technology for at least a couple of hours a day and tracking it. And it turned out when I switched off my screens for a certain amount of time per day, my energy levels went up about 5%. But when I switched off all technology for 8 hours or more a day, which I realize is quite a lot, and a lot of people can't necessarily do that. But when I did switch off technology for 8 hours a day or more, my energy levels went up 20%.
Wow.
That's a massive difference.
That is.
So just imagine if you're watching this and thinking, well, I need more energy. It's one thing to try to switch off technology all day and see what happens.
Absolutely.
Because you're forced to get out in the real world and enjoy life.
Yeah.
And my average is kind of, say, 7 out of 10 for energy levels. Right. But it would go up to 9 out of 10 if I switched technology off for all that time. So it's kind of fail safe if you track, because and I think that's part of NLP as well. One of the descriptions of NLP, or one of the definitions, people say it's doing what works, right? And I feel like this is the perfect way to work out how to do what works, because you're getting data. You can't argue with the stats. I know from my stats, when I do yoga on a particular day, my energy levels increase by 5%. I know, because it says that.
So in terms of doing this tracking, with activity, I assume that shows up straight away in terms of changing how you feel and things. But in terms of diet changes, do you need to do those for a certain amount of time?
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to get more sophisticated with the way I track. There are some apps that will track if you eat a cashew nut and in 2 days later you're bloated. It can link that bloating to the cashew nut, right?
Right, okay.
unfortunately, it's quite a lot for my brain to process.
Yeah.
But and then longer term, I see what you're saying as well.
So I guess for people who really want to go deep in this, they can get that proper, like, really deep information if they want.
But I'd encourage people to not go too deep in it first, but think, okay, what is it you want to change? You want to sleep longer, for example. A lot of people have trouble sleeping. Well, track a few things related to sleep. Did you switch your phone off 2 hours before you went to bed? Did you go to bed before midnight? Was it hot in the room? I don't know. Did you take a magnesium supplement before you go to bed? All these things over time, rather than guessing, you can actually start to get some data. And we're the first generation that can do this, so we might as well make the most of it.
Absolutely.
I mean, I guess 20 years' time, this stuff you'll be able to do will be just incredible. But at the moment, we're just starting out with our kind of technological tracking capabilities, and quite exciting. I do love it, but I am a bit of a geek as well.
Yeah.
Look at that, agreeing. Yeah, you are.
But that's fab. That's brilliant. I think some people will find that really useful to hear and can go away and have a play with that.
Hope so. I think it's very pure application of NLP, don't you? Like, just working out what works.
Yeah, totally. I absolutely agree with that. And I find, like, just give it that scale, like 1 to 10 scale.
Yeah.
It's such an easy way of measuring things that can seem immeasurable sometimes. Do you know what I mean?
Do you do that with clients as well with NLP when you're working on something? Ask them before you start. Out of 10, how bad is the problem, or how do you feel?
Yeah, I very often give them a scale so that I can track it, and so we're clear where we started and where we want to get to.
Yeah. Now, I think sometimes when you ask someone, if you're working on someone in a kind of therapeutic context, and you say, out of 10, how big is the problem? And they might say 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
And then, like, you'll ask them, like, in half an hour afterwards, and they might feel obliged to make you feel better that it works. They might say, "Oh, maybe like a 5 or a 6."
Yeah.
Even if that's the case, I don't think it matters that much, because even then, I think there's like a certain placebo effect going on. Whether it's placebo, whether it's actually happened, or whether they're saying it to make you feel better, I think it's still worth doing.
Yeah, I agree. And there's normally, certainly when I do it, there's normally time between. They probably can't remember what they said the first time, but
Oh, really? Yeah.
So that can be very useful.
Yeah.
So what's next for you?
Just chillaxing a little bit more.
Who would you love? Like, anyone, who would you absolutely love? Who would be the best person to interview for Zestology?
Well, I think, I mean, that's a very good question. I've interviewed some of the people that I wanted to interview, actually, which has been awesome. I've got an interview next week. Just before I tell you who I'd love to interview, I'm interviewing Sunita. You know Sunita?
Yeah.
That's hilarious. She's well into health and fitness these days. Weirdly, she's got a TV studio in her house, which don't quite know why, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it anyway. So she's not someone I've dreamt of interviewing since the year dot. But I'll tell you who I would like to interview: Tim Ferriss. You know Tim Ferriss, right? Yeah. I mean, I do like Tim Ferriss, and I was inspired by his books more than his podcast. Mm-hmm. And yet he's made such a massive success of everything that he does. I think in terms of the NLP maxine of doing what works and learning how people do things well, I think he'd be great.
Yeah.
So yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
what about you?
Oh, what about me? You know what? I want to plan a retreat.
Do you?
Yeah, I really want to do a retreat. I think I work with loads of mums.
Yeah.
We can get into mum zone so often, and you know, when you work, you kind of put different hats on.
Yeah.
The majority of the time, you're in mum, and I just think it'd be amazing to take a fantastic group of women away.
Yeah.
Really dig deep and look at what they're passionate about, and like find and connect with the real, like, deep parts of themselves that they feel kind of inner truth, and just kind of unleash it, let it shine. I think.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah. I'm just reading a book by John Gray at the moment. You know John Gray? He's the guy who wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus.
Yeah.
He's such an amazing guy. And the book is called Conscious Men. And so it's exploring the role of men now, allowing for the fact that we're not cavemen anymore, but we've got a lot of kind of caveman urges, if you like.
Yeah.
And it's talking about the difference between women and men in the kind of tribes. For most of our existence as humans, women would stay at home, nurture the family, protect. The men would go out and need kind of high levels of testosterone to kind of hunt. And then in the evening, they'd come back, they'd all eat together. And then apparently there'd be two separate campfires. And there'd be like one campfire, which was all the women of the tribe sitting around, talking, sharing stories, having fun, bonding, relaxing, maybe kind of, massaging each other, very kind of intuitive and kinesthetic and relating to each other. And the other campfire would be like men sitting around silently, not doing very much. One of them might be boasting about the animal or the kind of, the caveman from the rival tribe that he killed earlier in the day. Doesn't sound like that much fun, actually, the man's fire. But his point is that both sexes, women and men, need time to reconnect with their own. And he emphasizes man time, where you hang out with your male mates and you kind of remember what it is to be masculine, and what you were talking about in terms of getting that in that mum zone. I wonder if that's the same for women, in terms of like, you might spend 23 hours a day or 24 hours a day kind of fulfilling that kind of duty of your life, and you don't have time to stop for anything, but time to reconnect with who you are with other women might be an amazing thing for a retreat. That'd be awesome.
Be fantastic.
And maybe get John Gray to come and speak at it.
Absolutely, that would be fab.
Yeah, he's so cool. I just think he's an amazing guy.
Yeah, that is awesome. That's absolutely awesome. So, is there anything that I haven't asked you? Like, is there a question that would have been like the best ever question that I should have asked while we've been talking?
I don't think so. No, I mean, you've asked me what next, and obviously in terms of guests, I don't have like one dream guest, but what's next for me is just doing less in a way. I think we touched on it actually before we were starting. We were kind of chatting. I think as a Type A personality who's kind of quite good at achieving, I'm good at achieving things that I set my mind to. I'm not necessarily that good at stepping back and doing less. And I notice when I do, then the creativity really starts to flow. So if that might be the one thing that I'd like to emphasize, the fact that, there's a Da Vinci quote about the person that does less achieves more. And to me, that is when you take a few minutes to yourself each day and switch off and do nothing. And by the way, that involves switching off all technology as well. Then the creativity and the ideas start to flow, and you start to give your brain space to work out what's important.
I love that. And I totally agree with that. I've been talking lots with my own clients, and it was a turning point for me in my own life to stop the push all the time. Like, when you push trying to make something happen, and it's pushing against you. It's that like going on. When you can let go of that and actually get into flow. And I think the way that you get into flow is actually stepping back and
that's awesome. That's so cool. I want you to coach me on that. That sounds great.
But I think so I think that
I genuinely do. That sounds so good. I mean, you're absolutely right. When you push, it doesn't work, does it? No. But when you start to step back, and I mean that concept of flow, it's an elusive state, isn't it? But wow, when you get in it, it's so cool.
Yeah, I'm definitely in my own life. I am consciously going into flow as often as possible.
And so, how do you do that?
By switching off, by taking a step back and asking probably two questions that really help me. One is, if I was doing this my way, instead of worrying about trying to do it what other people would expect, how would I be doing it? And once I start doing it that way, then I get into flow, because
okay.
And it feels exciting, as opposed to like, and my little perfectionism can't kick in because it's just my way. And the second thing is imagining what would I do if I'd already achieved whatever. And I think that just knowing what the answer is, and by doing that now instead, makes that shift. So instead of
so hang on. So, sorry, the second thing, imagining what you want to achieve.
No. So I'll give you an example because it might make more sense, because this is I was struggling with a couple of days ago. So I was feeling quite stressed about summer holidays, got my coaching clients who I love and want to see.
Yeah.
To balance that with having the kids at home. And I was feeling quite stressed about what I was going to do. And so I took a step back and I've started journaling as well, which I'm loving at the moment. And so I do it by asking myself a question and then I answer the question. So the question that I asked myself was, if it was the end of September, the summer holidays had finished, I know that I'd earned X amount, I know that my clients had hit the goals, I know that all of these things had happened, what would I have done to have made the process simple?
Right. To make, I like that. Make the process simple. Nice. Yeah.
So by doing that, I was then like, well, actually, I would find a babysitter or a nanny who can come in.
Yeah.
Maybe just one day a week, and I can focus on work that week instead of trying to do all of it and feeling stressed and
yeah. And
I was like, and that let me go, yeah, so let's just go find a babysitter. Let's find that. It just took away that stress and that push and let me feel like I could go back into flow. So I found that really.
Yeah, that's awesome. Actually, simplicity is an easy one, isn't it? I mean, when you start to make life more simple, then I don't know if flow happens, but certainly everything seems clearer and less stressful.
Yeah.
I think we've probably got into flow over this the recording of this interview. It'll either be amazing or complete nonsense. Let's hope it's the former.
I'm sure it will be.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Tony.
Thanks. It's been great. I've loved it. I've learned a lot myself, and you've inspired me to kind of just get back into looking at flow states and how I could do more of that. And I genuinely want you to coach me in that. So.
I love it, and I feel very very to have you on here, knowing that you are out interviewing so many.
Don't be silly. I feel privileged to come on. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
That is awesome. And so, just say quickly, people can find your Zestology podcast.
Yeah.
In iTunes. Yeah,
it's in iTunes. It's on Spotify, and if you just Google Zestology or you Google my name, Tony Wrighton, then you'll find it. And there's lots of these. We mentioned John Gray earlier on. He's been on the podcast, and he was pretty cool. He told a fun story about how he was a celibate monk for 9 years. Oh. and then went on to write the biggest selling non-fiction book of all time on relationships. So kind of crazy journey.
That is crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
I didn't realise that.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's very cool.
Yeah, look, thanks. It's been good fun.
Absolutely. And I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Definitely.
Thank you, Tony.